New questions today about President Obama's new plan to fix our housing crisis. Right after the president took office, he vowed to help homeowners. Since then, there have been 4 major housing plans from the White House. The president has proposed $50 billion in planned spending. Just over $2 billion has actually been spent. And now a quarter of homeowners are underwater, meaning they owe more on their home than the home is actually worth. So what makes this new plan any different? Leslie Marshall is a syndicated radio host and a Fox News contributor, and Lars Larson is also a syndicated radio host. All right, guys, so what does make this plan different? Because it seems from what we read that the president has basically loosened the reins on the standards for refinancing, which sounds good in theory, Lars, but isn't that how we got into this mess?
That was the comment I made when I first heard about it, Megyn, is that this is how we got into that mess, by saying to people, this is a house you probably can't afford, but we'll make it possible for you to get in. One interesting thing is, and I have to credit the president in this plan, is that you say these are people who have to be current on their payments, or at least they've made the last 6. Well, if they're currently making their payments, why does the American taxpayer have to help them out making more? And if they really can't afford the house, why should we help to keep them in a house that they can't afford? None of that seems to make much sense. And again, I think it's limited only to FHA mortgages. That's going to be about $1 million in theory. And if this one spends his money as slowly as the other 3 or 4 have, it's not going to be very much help to very many people.
Leslie, isn't this going to just punt the problem down the road? Because if I'm underwater on my mortgage and then the government allows me to refinance and then I sell the house, it's not like the government has changed my negative equity. I still have negative equity in the home, and either the bank's going to wind up covering that when I sell my house, or I'm going to find some really stupid buyer who pays way more than the house is worth.
Well, I don't think there are that many stupid buyers right now, because it's certainly a buyer's market.
Right.
At least here in Los Angeles, where I live, most of the homes are upside down, mine included, because so many people have either had a short sale or a foreclosure. The bottom line here is, and Lars, I got to correct you, it's approximately 10 million Americans that have Freddie Mae Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae backed loans. Now, of course, not 100% of these people are going to be able to refi, but the bottom line here is the banks say, even if it takes us 10 years to sell this house, even if we'll make $5 more than keeping Americans in their homes, that's what they'll do. And the president's encouraging those, like I was just a year and a half ago, current, to stay in their homes by having a refi or a modification, and the banks aren't allowing that. So if the president's easing up, I know that I myself use that extra money as a consumer.
Well, there's no question it's going to help some people. I mean, there's no question it's going to help some people and put some more money in some people's pockets. But the question is whether that's sound fiscal policy, because, Lars, you know, what he's eliminating now is appraisals. You can get it without a rigorous credit or income check. That
Which is
I mean,
the way we got into
I
this
too
problem.
am underwater on a mortgage that I have down in Virginia. I got that mortgage because they did not do a rigorous credit or income check. I was not making any money. I really couldn't have afforded the house that I bought, but I got it because, you know, Countrywide was giving out mortgages like, you know, candy. And I'm underwater on that home. I mean, I'm working now and paying that mortgage, but a lot of people are going to be in that position. And now, once again, they're not going to have the credit checks, and they're going to get refied.
Again, just exactly the way we got into this with things like ninja loans. And I'm telling you, Leslie, this is foolish fiscal policy. If the person is currently making their mortgage, why does the American taxpayer have to help them out at all? And if they really can't afford the house, what they should do is the short sale now. The more we retard the natural effects of the marketplace and say we're going to hold off doom and gloom until it comes 2 or 3 years down the road, the more we keep the system from self-correcting. The marketplace is smart. The government is usually stupid.
On the other hand, Leslie, the reason the president's found himself in this position, among others, is because he tried to help struggling homeowners and encourage the banks to make all this lending possible. But the banks held on to the dough. They didn't do the lending because they tightened up the standards for lending. And that's why the housing market, which has been at the heart of this meltdown, hasn't moved much at all.
Well, this is the problem I've always had. First of all, I and the majority of Americans were against the bailout. It's sort of like you're bailing out the banks, but, you know, you won't help to bail us out. And certainly, as you know, and Lars, your buddies there on the Lars, you guys on the right want more. You want less regulations for the banking industry. How can you bail out the banks and then say, hey, by the way, just forgive the debts, the balances that these homeowners have? There are 2 problems to that. 1, you don't give them the money and say, okay, now you can't collect those funds from the people that pay mortgages. And 2, we don't want to send a message that any of us that receive funds, myself included, for homes that we should not have bought, that were out of our means and our league financially, we don't want to say, hey, let's go out and do that. That's the American way. We need to send a different message. I think that the housing crisis should have been addressed by the president earlier, and this is not supposed
Let me get
to be
this in, Lars, though, because some Democrats in particular are saying the president's plan does not go far enough, that he needs to do more, in particular, to sort of rectify the underwater situation. So to try to make people even on their underwater mortgages. So somebody like me, who I will admit I bought a house that was above what I really should have been buying, that they would now erase that negative equity and say, Kelly, it's like it never happened. You're all good on your equity. We're going to even things
Megyn.
out. That's pretty controversial. I mean, it sounds good in theory, but that's rather controversial for them to do that for millions of homeowners.
See, it doesn't make sense. Here's what makes sense. You know how to get those houses out from underwater? Get the economy moving again. Get people to be able to afford houses, and there's an easy way to do that. Shut the EPA down so it stops killing jobs. Get our trade going again. Start drilling for oil again. Get America back in business.
Is that what it's going to take? Because that's a lot. That's a lot for people who are trying to sell their homes.
Just for us to keep our homes.
They just got to get rid of all those regulations and drill for oil, and then I'll be good. Then I can put the house on the market.
Yeah, but Leslie
it's
thinks
all the
it's wrong to bail out banks for the right to bail out homeowners.
The reason I have a mortgage I can't afford is the EPA.
We always get back to that somehow. All right, Leslie and Lars, thank you both so much.
You bet.